It's strange how love can fade without you realizing it. One day everything feels easy, and the next you're strangers living under the same roof. That's where I was. Engaged to Ryan, a man I cared about deeply, but something between us had changed. He worked long hours, came home late, and when he did, our conversations were short and shallow. We talked about work, bills, things that didn't matter. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that every couple goes through dry spells. But deep down, I knew something was missing. I just didn't want to admit it. That Friday night, my coworkers invited me out for a drink after work. I almost said no, but I couldn't face another quiet evening waiting for Ryan's key in the door. So I went. The bar was warm and loud, full of laughter and people who seemed more alive than I felt. I stayed longer than I planned. By the time I stepped outside, it was close to midnight. The streets were calm, the air cool, and the city lights glowed like small promises in the distance. I checked my phone. A text from Ryan, working late again. Don't wait up. I stared at the message for a while, feeling that familiar ache of loneliness. I slipped the phone into my pocket and started walking home. That's when I heard it, the deep, steady hum of a motorcycle engine. It came from behind me, low and familiar. I turned around, and for a second I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But then I saw him, leaning casually against the bike, helmet under one arm, a grin tugging at the corner of his lips. Liam, my old college friend. My old roommate, the last person I expected to see in the middle of the night. "Ethan!" he said, his voice half laughter, half disbelief. Man, it's been years. I blinked, still caught between surprise and memory. "Liam, you still ride that thing?" "Always," he said, patting the seat with a grin. "Come on, let me give you a ride." For old time's sake, I hesitated. It was late, and I knew how it would look. Ryan wouldn't like it, but something about the moment, the cool air, the sound of the engine, the easy smile on Liam's face, pulled me in. Maybe it was nostalgia. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe both. I shrugged and said, "All right." For old time's sake, the engine roared as I climbed on. I wrapped my arms around his waist, feeling the vibration of the bike under us. The city began to blur as we sped through the streets. Wind brushed against my face, cold and sharp, but it felt good, alive. I could smell the faint scent of rain, the gasoline, the leather of his jacket. And beneath it all, I could feel the steady rhythm of his breathing. It was strange how natural it felt, being there behind him again. The streetlights flickered over us as we cut through empty roads. My heart beat fast, not from fear, but something else I didn't want to name. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about schedules, or deadlines, or the distance between me and the man I was supposed to marry. I was thinking about the warmth of the moment, about what it meant to feel seen again. When we finally stopped outside my apartment building, neither of us moved. The night felt still, like the world had paused just for us. Liam turned his head slightly, his voice quieter now. "You've changed," he said. I laughed softly. "Guess that happens." He tilted his head, studying me. "Yeah, but not completely." Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. It wasn't a flirt or a compliment, it was recognition. The kind that only comes from someone who once knew you better than you knew yourself. I climbed off the bike, unsure what to do with my hands or my words. "Thanks for the ride," I said finally. He nodded, smiling. "Any time." Then as I turned to leave, his fingers brushed against mine. It was a small touch, quick and light, but it sent a jolt through me. I froze. He didn't pull away immediately. He just looked at me, eyes soft, searching. And then, as if nothing had happened, he said, "Good night, Ethan." I swallowed hard and managed a quiet, "Good night." Inside my apartment, everything felt different. The silence was louder, the air thicker. I leaned against the door, closing my eyes, and took a long breath. My heart was still racing. I didn't know what that moment meant, whether it was just nostalgia or something else entirely. All I knew was that when I finally lay down, the sound of that motorcycle engine stayed with me. It echoed in my head like a song I couldn't stop replaying. And in that sound, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Something alive, something dangerous, something real. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, but I didn't feel rested. My mind kept replaying that moment. The soft brush of Liam's fingers against mine, the way his voice had sounded when he said goodnight. It was nothing, I told myself. Just a small, harmless thing between old friends. But even as I made coffee, even as I scrolled through emails, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That ride had stirred something in me I thought I'd buried long ago, something I didn't want to name. By midday, I got a message on my phone. "Liam, coffee later. There's a place downtown that makes the best cold brew you'll ever have." I stared at the text for a long time, my thumb hovering over the reply. I could have ignored it. I should have, but instead I typed back, "Sure, what time?" When I got there, he was already waiting outside the cafe, leaning against his bike again. The sight of him, the same easy posture, the same confident grin, made my chest tighten. "You actually came," he said. "Yeah," I replied. Couldn't resist a good cold brew. We laughed, and for a while it felt like college again, like time hadn't passed. We found a quiet corner inside. The cafe was small, cozy, and smelled like roasted beans and rain. Liam talked about his life since graduation, traveling, freelance work, never staying in one place too long. I listened, smiling, but part of me envied that freedom. At one point, he leaned forward and said, "So, engaged now, huh? Ryan, right? The guy you mentioned back in college?" "Yeah," I said, nodding. "It's good. He's stable. He's everything I thought I needed." Liam tilted his head slightly. "But are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. I laughed nervously. "That's complicated." He didn't push. He just smiled knowingly. "You always say that when you're not ready to answer." The word stuck with me. After an hour, we walked outside together. The sky had darkened, clouds gathering over the city. "Looks like rain," he said, glancing up. "Want me to give you a ride before it starts?" I hesitated, but before I could decide, a drop of rain landed on my wrist. Then another. Within seconds, it was pouring. Liam laughed, pulling on his helmet. "Come on, Ethan." "Unless you want to get soaked." I gave in. Again. The streets gleamed under the downpour, lights reflecting off the wet asphalt. I held onto him tighter this time, the cold rain mixing with the warmth of his body. It was reckless. It was wrong. But for those few minutes, I felt free. We ended up at his place, a small apartment near the river, walls covered in sketches and travel photos. We stepped inside, dripping wet, laughing like idiots. He tossed me a towel and we sat down on the couch, still catching our breath. "That was insane," I said, shaking my head. He grinned. "You used to love insane." I rolled my eyes. "I used to be 21. "Age doesn't kill who you are," he said softly. "You just forget how to listen to him." The room went quiet after that. The rain hit the windows in steady waves. I felt his eyes on me, not in a way that demanded, but in a way that saw. And I realized how long it had been since someone looked at me like that, like they remembered every version of me I'd ever been. He reached out slowly, brushing a drop of water from my hair. My breath caught, but I didn't move. His fingers lingered at the back of my neck, gentle, deliberate. The space between us felt electric, charged with years of unspoken things. "Liam," I whispered, but it came out weak. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, searching, almost afraid. And then, before I could think, he leaned in. The kiss was soft, uncertain, filled with hesitation and memory. For a few seconds, the world fell away. The rain, the city, everything. Then reality hit. I pulled back, heart pounding. "I can't," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm engaged." Liam nodded slowly, eyes low. "I know, I just missed you." I stood up, my pulse still racing. "This can't happen." He gave a small, sad smile. "Then why does it feel like it already did?" I didn't answer. I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside into the rain, not caring how soaked I got. My thoughts were a storm. I wanted to feel angry, guilty, something clear. But all I felt was confused. By the time I got home, the apartment was dark. Ryan had texted again, "Don't wait up." Long night. I stared at the message, the rain dripping from my hair onto the floor. I deleted the text before I could respond. As I lay in bed, my heart wouldn't settle. I could still feel Liam's hand at the back of my neck, the warmth of his breath against my skin, and the truth I didn't want to face. That for a moment, I had remembered what real closeness felt like. I didn't see Liam again for a few days. I told myself that was for the best, that what happened in his apartment was a mistake, a moment caught between nostalgia and loneliness. But the truth was, part of me kept hoping he'd text again. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, expecting his name to appear. It never did, and maybe that silence hurt more than I wanted to admit. Ryan finally came home early one evening. He smiled, kissed my cheek, and dropped his bag on the floor. "Missed you," he said, his voice tired but kind. I smiled back, trying to sound natural. "Missed you too." He didn't notice the hesitation in my voice. Or maybe he did, and just didn't want to ask. We ate dinner in front of the TV, half talking, half watching. It felt normal, and that scared me, because normal shouldn't feel like pretending. Later that night, as he showered, I stood by the window, watching the city lights shimmer in the rain. I thought about that kiss, about how wrong it was, and yet how real it felt. With Ryan, things had become predictable. Comfortable, yes, but quiet. With Liam, even a few minutes felt like waking up after years of sleepwalking. I hated myself for comparing, but I couldn't stop. The next morning, I found a message waiting on my phone. From Liam. "Leaving town tomorrow. No drama, no hard feelings. Just wanted to say goodbye. You know where to find me if you ever need to talk." I stared at the screen for a long time. My chest felt heavy, like something inside me was collapsing. I typed 3 different replies. "Take care, I'm sorry, let's talk," and deleted them all. In the end, I didn't send anything. I just sat there, letting the silence grow between us one last time. That evening, Ryan came home carrying flowers. It wasn't our anniversary or my birthday. He just said, "You've seemed distant lately. Thought this might cheer you up." I took the flowers, smiling faintly. "They're beautiful," I said. He hugged me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. For a moment, I let myself sink into it. It felt familiar, safe, but deep down, I knew it wasn't enough anymore. Over the next few weeks, life slipped back into rhythm. Work, sleep, small talk. But something inside me had shifted. I started noticing things I used to ignore. How often Ryan checked his phone at dinner, how our laughter had disappeared, how the spark we once had turned into quiet companionship. It wasn't his fault. Maybe it wasn't even mine. People change, and sometimes love can't keep up. One night, we attended an engagement party for some friends. Everyone was laughing, taking pictures, dancing under soft lights. Ryan stood beside me, smiling politely, but we felt miles apart. Across the room, I saw a couple dancing, laughing, whispering, completely lost in each other. I felt something twist in my chest, a reminder of what I used to believe love felt like. I thought about Liam's smile, the wind during that midnight ride, the way my name sounded in his voice. After the party, Ryan fell asleep quickly. I couldn't. I sat on the balcony, city lights flickering below. My phone was on the table beside me, the message from Liam still unread, still there. I opened it again and read it slowly, letting the words sink in. "You know where to find me if you ever need to talk." It wasn't a temptation. Not anymore. It was a reminder. I realized that what happened with Liam wasn't about betrayal. It was about honesty, about being forced to face what I'd been avoiding. I had been pretending everything was fine because I didn't want to break something stable. But stability isn't the same as love. The next morning, I told Ryan we needed to talk. My voice shook, but I didn't back down. I told him I felt lost, that something in me had changed, and that I didn't know how to fix it. He listened quietly, eyes wide, like he was seeing me for the first time in months. He didn't yell or cry. He just nodded and said softly, "Thank you for being honest." We didn't break up that day, but we stopped pretending. We started talking again, really talking, about what we wanted, what we missed, what scared us. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Weeks later, as I walked home one night, I heard the faint roar of a motorcycle passing through the city. For a moment, I looked up, half expecting to see him. But it was someone else, a stranger disappearing into the distance. Still, I smiled, because I realized it wasn't about Liam anymore. It was about what he made me remember. That love isn't supposed to feel like waiting. It's supposed to make you feel alive. That midnight ride didn't change my life, It just reminded me that I still had one.